Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Jagoda here with us this week, talking about the astrological prediction technique, Dasha periods. And I don't know if I need to do too much of an intro. We could just jump into you describing who you are for those, because there's always somebody new, some regular folks. Well, I guess I should say thank you for everyone joining us live. Please make comments in the live chat, and thanks for everybody watching on the replay. Please like and subscribe and all those things. Jagoda.
Yep. Hi, guys. I am an astrologer, a spiritual teacher, a tarot reader, a reiki healer, and I cooperate with Kasri to talk about basics of those esoteric cards that I use in my private readings. So if you want to book a session with me, that's you can find it in the link that Kasri put in the description. And here what we're doing is we're helping you guys to understand the crucial elements of those spiritual teachings for those who are completely new to them and who don't know anything about them. And I pick the ones that I find to be the most important. I just pick information that I think that you can kind of learn by yourself at home. And the one that I think is going to change your life when it comes to self-understanding the most. And that's why we already covered basics of numerology, basics of tarot, basics of astrology, and basics of human design for those who just know nothing about them. And today we're covering the basics of what I consider to be the most important prediction technique in astrology. Like myself, I am not really very strong on the whole prediction element because I'm more into the psychological aspect of things. But I know many people are. They feel anxious about their future. They don't understand what life expects out of them, what to think about it. And so I'm going to basically talk about how you can access information about what cosmically you're energetically working through at a given time. And to do this, we're going to use example charts so that you can see how that works. Can really do it, without showing an example chart. So we're going to start with Kasri, who's going to be our guinea pig for today. We also had one subscriber send us her birth data, so we can also do her chart. And we're going to show you how that works in real life, how these applications work. Now, I know that many of you come from the background of tropical astrology exclusively. And, I have many years of experience. I started with just pure tropical too. I've been studying for so many years. And the placements that you'll see today, they actually are the same. So if you are attached to a certain sun sign or rising sign, it's not going to change. But what we do is we add an added dimension of wisdom from ancient Indian texts, which don't really remove anything about the signs. They just add an extra layer of complexity and details when it comes to being able to understand your charts. For example, in the video about the basics of Vedic astrology, which you should watch if you're watching the replay, you should watch that first. Actually, we cover the fact that the advantage of Vedic techniques over just plain tropical is that they divide zodiac signs into between 2 and 3 parts, depending on which sign that is, and they add an extra characteristic to it that is linked to Indian deities, which kind of personifies our life experience in that department, seeing how as human beings we kind of recreate, relive their experience on a smaller scale. And so as a result, you're going to see much more accuracy, detail, and in how much that unfolds in our human lives. And you can see that it's very powerful down to the fact that, for example, actors that is research with the placements, they pick roles that are always so mythologically accurate when it comes to being a direct representation of the events that certain deities, according to myths, have suffered through in their lives. I kind of like to think that what people call deities may simply be historical figures that used to live in Indian history many thousands of years ago. And what happens that when someone is 10,000 years old, the people deify them. So I wonder if basically there's some sort of patterns, that just occur cosmically, and simply these people were, brave humans that just simply tend to share similar chart placements, and that's why you can see that a pattern repeats itself, and even up to now. So the way this works is that normally, I think that even if you are very new to astrology, you have heard of transits, and transits, of course, are a normal occurrence of both. Tropical and Vedic, and actually Kasri has another astrologer on her channel that covers that. They cover monthly transits. So the way I explain is that transits are more like the weather that occurs externally. Something's always going on, right? One day it rains, one day it shines. But the technique that I'm going to talk about today is more how you are internally predisposed to react to those events. Because let's say you have a person that, you have 2 family members in one house, right? and one person says, oh, damn, it's raining, I'm not leaving the bed today because I hate rain. And the other person's gonna say, yeah, you know, I don't care, I'm gonna go for a run. And why does one person decide this and the other person decide that? It's because of their predisposition to react differently to external events. And so this technique shows how individually you'll react to different things during a different time, because during the course of our lives, we have different focuses, we have different tendencies that kind of show different parts of our personality kind of play out at different times. Like you might think about someone, wow, she was such a party girl in college 20 years ago, and now look at her, she's so responsible. That's because her personal planetary period changed. And right now, this is someone who basically is going to have a different focus because their chart, their individual personal periods have changed into a different part of themselves being played out. And depending on how that is individually happening in your chart, you're going to have different results. Because the planetary periods are assessed by a ruling planet that brings out certain traits in a person, and that working harmoniously or not is going to show you the level of success you're going to have during that period in your life. So let's say that someone, for example, has a very positive Saturn. So during their Saturn period, they're going to be very determined, goal-oriented, focused, and they may have a lot of progress and success because of that. So even though Saturn in general can be quite heavy, if it's positively applied, it's going to be someone who really, at the end of the period of time, is going to say, you know what, I worked hard, but I'm happy that I did because I have all these things that I have worked for and achieved, and they're going to serve me for the rest of my life, and now I can move on. But then if someone has Saturn in a bad sign, like a sign that's difficult for it, like Aries or Scorpio, then they might feel frustration, that they might feel blocked from something that they're passionate about, they may be less disciplined, and as a result, they're going to suffer more in that period of time. So as you can see, it's not just about which planet rules the period, but it's about how the planet acts in your own chart. So we're entering a very high level of complexity that shows us that not only we're going to respond differently to different planets, but to the condition of those planets that is going to show us how our responses are. So it's kind of like, with transits, certain transits are harder on us externally, certain of us are harder internally. And the final result is kind of like a clash of both. Your own disposition mixed with the external occurrences is kind of what rubs together and creates the result of our life that we have. And I think people only look at transits and they skip a lot over how they themselves perceive things, right? And I think we could see it very strongly during the pandemic, is that some people, they were like, oh my God, no, it's the end of life. And they, they really took it like so hard to the point that they felt like everything was ending for them. And so people, they were like, you know what? Okay, it's tough, it's horrible, but we'll break through this and come out stronger on the other end. And you can see very strongly how the transit was the same for the whole world. The event was external, but people had different experiences. Some people didn't even get sick. Some people, literally passed away. So you can see how this internal suggestion, the internal condition in response even to a very strong external event is going to produce a result. It's the same, historically when we had events such as war, like it used to be very more popular, I guess, like in the first world countries, wars used to be more of a thing, and like 100 years ago. And some people, they even made money as a business during them, right? While some people, they lost everything. So you can see that, again, the perception of the individual, the internal condition during that particular time is what's going to decide how the event is going to affect them. And again, the timing is so important because the same event could affect you differently if it was a different time in your life when you had different resources available to you. And during a different time, it can be more or less negative depending on how you feel about it. So let's say that, I don't know, that maybe you're able to handle a bigger workload when you were younger because you had like a lot of family support, right? But then you can handle the same one as you age because you have a different planetary period and you don't have the support you used to have. So it's kind of tough on you, right? And then you can see if someone has like a, let's say, a hobby or a task that they've been doing lifelong, and you look at yourself and you think, damn, I don't know, when I was 20, I used to be able to lift 200 pounds without bending an eyelash. And right now I can't even, move my arm. And it may be because, not just because of the natural body deterioration, but because a different planetary period has kicked in and you just have different tools given to you by the universe. Anyway, so just to go back to the example, we're going to start with Kazri. So Kazri, please pull up the files that I sent you for your chart. And I sent 3 images, so I'm going to tell you which one. One is just a list of, this is a list of her placements. You can see the things on the list of the planets. LG is Lagna, and that's ascendant. Otherwise, you can see things like SU, that's Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury. Should be pretty easy, even if you're new to Vedic. So everything except for LG, which is ascendant, should be familiar to you. And also Rahu and Ketu are the nodes. Rahu is the north node and Ketu is the south node. So then you have even down to Pluto, we have all the planets. So this is basically just a list for basic placements, which she's going to, exercise no matter what time in her life. And we need to refer to this to see the condition of the planetary lord of a given time period to see how he's going to perform. And by the way, you're very lucky, Kazri, because you have like the ultimate, the best lunar nodes in all of astrology. There are some classics that say that the lunar mansion of your south node and the one with the north node is like the best one for people to have because it fights inertia and allows you to always kind of bounce back from even tough events. And some people who have it, for example, in the reverse situation, they can be very much more prone to like staying in depression, not being able to break out of it. And what you have is like, yeah, go ahead.
And remind me which on here, which is north node and south node?
It's the one that says Ra, Ra, that's Rahu, that's the north node, and Ke, it's Ketu, that's south node.
There
it says, yeah, because you have like moon conjunct the north node, basically, in Gemini, like very loosely conjunct. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, let's scroll to the next image. I don't remember which one I put first, but we're going to be going back and forth between them. Yeah, there you go. This is perfect. So this is basically the basic breakdown of all the planetary influences for your whole life. And the way this happens is that the period starts slightly before your birth, because here we have the exact date, right? The first one is the day, the second one is the month, the last one is the year. So Kezi was actually born in 65, so like 3 years after this one. And you can see that you were born during the period that's responsible, that's being ruled by the North Node in Gemini. And so the disposer of that is going to be Mercury. Can you now go back to your basic chart so that I can see the...
Sure.
Yeah, so there you go. So your Mercury is in Cancer, and it's going to be in the second house. So honestly, I find it to be absolutely excellent for childhood because, first of all, Cancer planets are very, soft and nurturing and exploratory. And being born, in a childhood where you're influenced by Cancer planets is fantastic. And the second house is also about family stability. It's about some sort of groundedness, right? It's about some sort of feeling of knowing that you have what you need, even if it's very limited. Now, we have to also look at the aspects of the planets where we have the Sun and Venus also. Yeah, the trouble here can be is that you have kind of a stellium in the second house, so the planetary influence could be strong. And see, for example, this can lead to like a slightly larger family circle. When I say larger, means you're going to have siblings for sure with that. Like, for example, I'm an only child, and you can see in my chart. And here with all the Mercurial influence and the Sun and Venus influence, it's visible that the focus is going to be very hard on the family structure. Like you know that some kids have this kind of life where they are, where kind of the parent's job takes on precedence in their emotional life. Not for you, at least not until you are a teenager, because I think it switched like in 1980 for you, if I remember correctly. So like again, yeah, there you go, because it goes to Jupiter. However, on the other hand, what I can tell you is that being born in a period of the North Node and the kind of thing that your soul is going into is something that feels unfamiliar to your soul, because the North Node is our leap outside the comfort zone. So that doesn't mean there's something wrong with it, but what it means is that it may be untraditional, and you may feel like for your soul, this is a completely new experience. That means that this is a soul that was basically dumped here on this earth to just kind of, be thrown into deep waters and learn how to swim. So it's kind of ironic how even if the experience is not bad, technically, objectively, the person can feel unsettled because the soul is not familiar with this kind of situation. So I'm gonna take a quick look at your chart myself so that we don't have to scroll back and forth. So for you, a person with this North Node that I'm seeing is in the 11th house. The feeling of having a lot of people and the feeling of community when you were younger could have been something that on a soul level was different for you, because you could have been historically in the past life used more to like go and get alone, and in this life you were straightaway thrown more into a group environment where you would have felt like you had to fit in a way so that you could survive. And I'm curious actually, what is your own impression of the time in your life you remember, because it was a long time ago, like up until 1980, when your Jupiter period started. Like how would you, like, I know it's hard to remember when you're younger, but how would you feel about that?
Well, I do have 3 siblings.
There you go.
And my experience, I had a really, and when you said about just being dumped on the planet in the deep end and learn how to swim, that kind of feels like it. My family was definitely like a group of individuals. There were 4 kids and 2 parents, but we were each an island unto ourselves from what I could tell. There weren't any especially tight. Well, I guess I was close to my mother until I was 7 or 8. And then to a certain extent until I was, 12 or so. But yeah. Can you ask, if you ask a more specific question, I could tell you more about my childhood.
Yeah, sure. Because I'm looking at the chart, and it's just funny because there is contradiction. On one hand, there is influence when the expositor is in the second house from the experience. So in a way, you would say that this is that there is a strong element of support, and that can be opposed to someone who with a different chart than you could have been brought up in an orphanage where they feel like they have no support whatsoever, right? But on the other hand, this expositor, Mercury, though second from the North Node itself, is in the 12th house in your chart in general, right? Because you have Mercury in 12th house natally. So the thing is that, again, it can be unfamiliar to the pattern that your soul is comfortable with. So in a way, because your rising sign is in Leo, you could have felt like, well, there was a certain amount of comfort. Your natural qualities of leadership were not really fostered during the time. So maybe you could have felt like there was no place for you to really show that side of yourself, because maybe, you said that everyone's kind of an island upon themselves, the 12th house can mean isolation, but, Leos like to have an audience that engages with them, right? They don't necessarily like to do what anyone else tells them to, but they also like to have someone receptive to them. So on one hand, there was an element of self-sufficiency, like you said, but it did not really fulfill, those criteria of you having that environment for you to shine properly. So it's like, there was security, but it didn't really feel like it was the perfect stage for you to be perfectly who you are, which, let's face it, so, very few souls have that on this earth. But you go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, that's a very good way to describe it. My mother was very much a sort of, it wasn't in the 50s, but she was very much a 50s housewife mom where, she took care of the, did the laundry and the cleaning and made meals and was engaged even in school. She was like in this culture, we have what's called a room mother. So she like brought cookies on the different holidays and helped out with little class parties and things. So she, she was doing all she could to engage, because too, I think she had too many children. Like she wanted to have a lot of kids. And then when she had a lot, she was like, oh my goodness, this is so much to deal with. And I was going to say something else and now I don't remember what it was.
Take your time.
So yeah, and then my father was a very good provider. He always had a corporate company job and he was gone a lot, which wasn't great. Like from the point of view of like and he didn't really engage with us even when he was there. So he was sort of emotionally absent, but he was a really good provider. And so, because I have friends that maybe had to move a lot or get your electricity shut off or like none of that. Like, so I had physical security, but you're right. It was not, I wasn't nourished or supported or encouraged in any way that really had any meaning for me. Like, I was a really smart kid and I went to public school, and it was, up until I was, between the ages of like 7 and 12, it was in a really small town. And so it was, I don't know, it was, none of the work that I did was interesting or inspiring. Like, yes, I learned to read and to do math and different things, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's very very telling what you said, that that you felt like your father was a strong provider because of the second house influences that you had, and all the Cancer stuff. But because also of the extra 12th house influence, there's a disconnect between, on one hand, having the physical provision, and on the other hand, not feeling like your individuality and your uniqueness is has a good ground for development. And it's totally true what you said, that it can feel sad, but there are some kids who suffer from that. Like personally, I have North Node in the second house, and my family was like really struggling even with basic stuff growing up. And I remember the first thing I heard from my family is that if I don't do something myself, then I'm not gonna get anything because they don't have anything, and I should be glad that I'm not on the street. Basically, that was like the first thing I was raised with. So here's what you see when the second house is kind of challenged, like in my chart. And as opposed to what you had, where there was a 12th house interplay, but that physical security was there. And what you said about your mom, where she was very much like the 50s mom, and she was like very traditional and stuff. that's like so Cancerian, like the whole Cancer stellium is just so visible, like it's almost like the cliche of it. But here looking, it's very important to look at your ascendant when you judge your planetary periods, because the ascendant is our basic life path. It's our soul's gifts. So when a dispositor is in the 12th house, you're going to feel like there is a certain lack, as in what you wanted. And that doesn't mean that you don't want these energies in your life at all. It just means that how it was done was not really fully up your alley. And now I'm just thinking, also about my chart, because I have Jupiter in the 12th house, and it's an owner mention that can be very highly, devotional when it comes to practices. And instead of being spiritual like I am, my family was religious because they're Catholic. So I'm just thinking how, again, like you said, there was something there because they're a Catholic, but I didn't care about being Catholic. I cared about being spiritual. So in a way, there was something, but not really the full thing the way you like it. And that's how the 12th house works. So I think that is very, go ahead.
And there's another interesting thing. I'm wondering if it's in the chart somewhere that, like I said, my mother, was sort of the embodiment of a traditional 50s housewife, but philosophically, she was a feminist, and she was very, verbally, she told me things, and she encouraged me to be, because I think when I was a little girl and they ask you when you're 5, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, now, granted, a 5-year-old doesn't necessarily know all the things that there are, but of the things that I knew, I said, well, either a teacher or a nurse. And then when I said that to my mom, she said, well, you don't just have to be a nurse, you could be a doctor. And yet it was such a mixed message, because my mother attempted to raise me to be a really strong, independent woman, feminist, whatever. But she was modeling not the exact opposite, but modeling something very different, in that, she didn't, and I guess she didn't go to, I think she went to junior college for a little while, and she was really artistic and worked on her own for like a year before she got married. But then she got married and started having babies. And then when she looked up when she was 40 and the kids were kind of old enough where she could work, she couldn't really get her foot back in the door to get a job very easily. And so is there something in my chart that talks about, my mother figure being one thing, but like trying to tell me to be something different, which I think creates this internal struggle where, it's a weird thing that happened.
Yeah, what I think actually that is not half as weird as you think, because that's exactly what all parents do. That they tell us to do something that they haven't done, and what it is going to differ, right? But then again, I would say that the area that we have there is is our North Node, where yours is in the 11th house of your biggest aspirations. So this is kind of like how I told you my North Node is in the 2nd house, and my family said, well, we don't have anything, but you go and get some of the stability that you want. We're not going to help, but you get it. And it's the same for you when your mother said, well, you go get your aspirations fulfilled, and I can't really do it. So it's like the area where maybe they wish you well and they don't really oppose you, unless it's like very heavily afflicted in someone's chart, which you don't have, so lucky you. But on the other hand, they are unable to give you any tools to really realistically help you with what you want to do yourself. So you kind of have to venture into this darkness. Some people call it, in the community, call it a jungle. That this is the jungle of your life that you have to explore it on your own, even if the parents say, yeah, go ahead, do it, you kind of being thrown there to do it by yourself. And I'm honestly thinking about when this could have changed for you. And well, by the time we move into the next period, which started in the beginning of 1980s, the thing is that on one hand, the planet has changed, but the irony is that this positor stays the same, and your North Node and Jupiter are kind of loosely conjunct. So I kind of feel like, well, you may have had kind of more agency and more openness, and maybe less fear when it came to venturing into the unknown. And maybe you would have found yourself more as a person. It still could have taken you a long time, and I don't really feel like it was, like it was something that would have fully brought you fulfillment, because again, this wasn't to the 12th house. So I think that, ironically enough, what would have been better for you is the Saturn period would start in 1996. I think that you could have felt, even up until the very end of the Jupiter period, in 90s, that you could have felt a lot of stagnation despite your efforts, And that Saturn period that started for you in 1996, as you can see, could have really been a game changer, that even if there were some sort of painful losses or transformation, it could have been a time where you could have really shed a lot of things that were not good for you, so you could actually pursue what you value. because the thing is that when the dispositors are conjunct of two planets and you have one period after another planetarily, there may be a slight shift in energy in how it's approached. And especially when you move from North Node, which is more shaky, to Jupiter, you may have more confidence. But the difference in the results is never really going to be fully that different, because ultimately they are like sitting in the same room in the same house. So I think that even if it was something difficult and something more traumatic starting a certain period, it could have ultimately shaken you out of that zone that was not really fully for you and pushed you constructively towards things that ultimately became more, more individually tailored to you. It's because the dispositor of your Saturn is actually Jupiter. And Saturn itself is in the
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a interesting date as far as it looks like 29 January 1996. There was, I think it was February 2nd, because I think it was Groundhog Day, that I had a court. I was in court, which I think was the only time I was ever in court for getting in trouble for things. And it, listening to what you said is sort of interesting, because it was in theory, it was putting an end to a cycle that I had been doing, and I was going to be doing different things, even though I'd actually started doing different things, the previous June. And I did go into a different period, and it looks like the next time it shifts isn't for a long time after that. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, that's almost on the exact date of something happening that was really significant, and yet, yeah, following most of what you say, even though going between the two charts, and I know we have one other chart, because these are the dates when the focus goes from like Ra to, I guess, Jupiter, and then Saturn, the SA, Mercury.
Yes.
KE is
South Node.
And then V is Venus, Sun, Moon, and Mars. I'm guessing, those, if I get to live to be 99, because on the right-hand column is the years. And like you're saying, the Ra period beginning, interestingly, 3 years and 4 months before I was born. And so, in the ether, wherever my spirit was, or I guess that's when the period began. And so then when I was born, 3 years into it is where or even when I was conceived, 9 months before that, I guess, is when I kind of began to resonate in that energy. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, because I'm wondering wanting to make, it's helpful to have visuals, and yet like on the first chart, kind of a lot harder, because I know you've referenced the different houses, but I don't think that's not the number in the PA column, right? That's something.
No, this is just a list. If you want the one with the houses, I would have to screen share like another whole thing, because there's the Indian chart that goes kind of like clockwise. I didn't send this one because because it's just not it would be, I can try to do it, but it's just I guess I can screenshot that too and send to you so that you can see it.
It would be helpful. That's because then you did send a third chart, which we haven't looked at yet, and
that's more for the moment. That's gonna be like the last part of our analysis, because it's more of the current energies. But first, I'm just generally looking at the picture of your life. But yeah, this is just to show you how it looks in the now. But yeah, I'm also thinking that when the Saturn period started, like there's a thing that happens to children and young people, is that when they're in an environment that, in a way, even if it has some good things, but is so not conducive to what that child wants in life, they kind of end up, like you kind of implied, rebelling, because they feel hopeless. They feel so hopeless that they kind of think that, I don't give an F. I just don't care. I'm just gonna do whatever I want, and they forget that they're responsible for their own lives, because the hopelessness is so big that they feel as if the universe itself and God is against them. So they end up just kind of throwing things around, because it's a protest against the life that they feel like it's like it doesn't make them happy. And when Saturn comes in, it's kind of a reality check that says, well, your parents may not be perfect for you, and someone in your life around you may be messing up, but at the end of the day, it's your life. And you're going to be the one that's at the end someday alone on your deathbed, and you're going to be there with everything you've done and everything you haven't done. And if you don't take accountability for this now, you're going to be the one paying for it, and being mad at mom and dad forever only takes you and everyone else in life so far. That's what Saturn teaches you. So that can be a period where something external kind of reminds you of that, and kind of gives you a gentle kick in the butt to take accountability, not for the sake of pleasing anyone, but for the sake of kind of, self-preservation, survival, and self-interest. And that can take you in a situation where even if the environment around you really sucks, you're like, you know what, I'm going to just do the best I can with the little that I have, because I have to dig myself out of this hole. And that can come in a person's life at really a different time in their lives that it's really relevant. Like, if I remember correctly, Scott is going to, like, my husband's going to have his when he's like in his way mid-50s, So, when they say that men grow up when they start getting old, that's what's going to happen. Anyway, jokes aside, that the cosmos has different, ideas for when that could happen to you. So for you, it was, karmically fated. That was the time when that was supposed to, set you straight. So it lasted like all the way until 2015. It was a time when you kind of could have been cleaning yourself up gradually of all the things that you were forced into that were not aligned for you in a way, or you could have started to take responsibility and again in a way to take care of yourself in that adult way. And some people think that I'm an adult and I have some sort of a job and I pay my bills, so I'm fine. But the question is, long term, one day, is that effort going to give me anything meaningful and nice out of life, or am I going to just be an old person that's that draws a paycheck and wants to die, basically? So Saturn, in a way, while it's an ambitious planet, it's ambitious realistic from a spiritual standpoint, where it asks about the fulfillment of our deepest desires, even if they do take a lot of work to fulfill. So at this time, you could have really been asking yourself some hard-hitting questions about what do I really want, no matter what happens around me. And right now you're already over that. But I think that's also why I'm seeing that you are so, driven with your project, your community, because right now, as you're in the period of Mercury, after that, you're implementing the learning of new skills and trying to meet new people and network in ways that are actually compatible with your desires and what you want. And I think that you are going to be reaping a lot of rewards from that by the time that you get to the period of Venus, which is, you still have time. It's like in 15 years. But this can be like a really peaceful time for you, because Venus rules relaxation. And you can feel at this point that, I paid my dues. Despite everything that's happened to me, I am where I want to be and I'm fine. And I can just enjoy myself and really do whatever I want with people. I have people that I care around me. I have enough money to do it, and I'm at peace. So I think, even if that's, near the further part of someone's life, it's really beautiful. I think that one of the issues people can have, of course, depending on the conditions and the aspects with Venus, that when you have it earlier in life, people kind of end up being too crazy about it. They kind of use up all their pleasure when they're very young, and then they don't really have any goals. And when life forces you to put you through a more difficult period when you're younger, you build up more of a spine, and then you end up having more conscious, mature enjoyment as you age. That's why Venus and Saturn are friendly, because Saturn here shows that enjoyment should be responsible. It shouldn't be gluttonous. It shouldn't be responsible to the environment, and that quality is more important than quantity or obsessive desire. So I think that I have to look at this poster though, because I didn't look yet. But I think that it's very clear how this shapes up for you, and that's why we often have these situations in life that we can see something that I'm not going to tell because I won't have the time, but I study in my free time. What I do is that I pour over the software and I analyze hundreds of people, the people that I know from my Facebook list, and people that are in the public eye, because many of them have their data posted online down to the birth minute. And these people, you can see how some of them, they had a very early success because there was some other plan that gave them that success, and then what happens? They have all the money and they fall into drugs. I think I already used that case recently when I was talking about the guy that was famous with the Home Alone movies. What is he, in his 40s now? And he had a very brief moment of fame when he was a kid, and then he was trying to get out of drugs his whole life. Imagine all that fame, the popularity, everyone knows who he is. I do not think he was happy for a moment, that whole time. All the superficial success gave him absolutely nothing. And right now he has a kid and he's married and he's really fulfilled, right? But it took him over 30 years to get his, SHIT together, it was just so hard for him. And you can see how probably, he had some planetary periods that first encouraged that recklessness. And then maybe, I don't remember because I don't remember every celebrity, maybe Saturn or something like this stepped in, or maybe a planet in Capricorn that made him more responsible towards his goals and now gave him actual reliable happiness. And I forgot actually to look at the dispositor of your Mercury, because Mercury is in the 12th house too, but it's in Cancer and the Moon is in the 11th. I think that right now, during the Mercury period, you have the unique chance to be trying out a lot of things that you felt like you wish you could have done in childhood but never had the chance, because they're again in the 12th house in the 11th house. So a lot of your childhood dreams are may be coming true in a new responsible form as you work for them. Like this is what I'm seeing from that, because the houses repeat themselves. You know, again the huge stream in the 12th and the 11th house, they repeat themselves, and yet they do it in different forms where you have more control now that you're not a kid, where you can kind of rewrite your story and give yourself what your parents never gave you. And it's really, you know, in a way, it's very magical how also these periods, like the first one, which was Rahu as North Node and Jupiter, are kind of glued together, and then Saturn and Mercury are kind of glued together to where kind of there is a natural progression of maturity, you know, and it's very it's really beautiful. And I think that in a way it's very lucky, because some people, they have their charts more peppered, where there's one period, then there's an abrupt break, and they go to something completely else. But in your case, you kind of have like a very smooth progression because of these conjunctions and stelliums. So in a way, that's like a lucky thing where it helps you consistently have the same goal in life, you know? That's why you have those people who maybe start one career, do something completely else, and they maybe go quite far, and then one day they just leave it and do something else, and they just wonder, why did I even do the thing before? They just feel like they wasted their time. Well, you're not going to have that, basically, because there's like a lot of recurrence from the desires that you had early on as they get realized in your life. Like you have the playing field to do it right now, basically, which is really great, because in a way it's very hopeful. It tells you not to give up on your dreams. You know, it's very, very nice. Do you have any comments so far, or can I go on?
No, yeah, you could go on. Oh, I did want to check. I know you sent. I thought you were sending one thing, but you sent like 3 more charts.
Oh yeah. Okay. First of all, I also sent you my stuff because I want to show some other examples. Because Chili hasn't showed up yet, so I'm waiting for Chili, and I'm gonna, after I'm done doing you, I'm gonna do myself too. And yeah, I'm in the middle of.
Yeah, I guess we could ask Chaylee if you're in because there's a few people watching live. If Chaylee's one of them, normally we would expect she would say something because she normally chats, lets us know. But yeah, so you sent me yours. You want me to get
not
those
yet,
ready?
but but I'm also gonna send you like 3 more others, and this is me, you, and Chaylee just in a picture form where you can see the houses.
Oh,
and,
okay,
I'm gonna send that to you too.
But what you just sent was yours, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and even if you put up on screen, I'm gonna know whose chart is whose because I have the software here.
That's true.
And I'll be able to recognize. And also, I know my own chart by heart, and by now I'm kind of learning yours too because I've looked at it a lot. Yeah, I'm sending you the last thing, and yeah. Like I kind of really like Chili to be here because this thing is very interactive. As in, I'm interested in her response when it comes to her life, because what matters is seeing it play out in somebody's fate. That's what really matters here. That's why having your feedback matters, and that's why also we encourage viewers to show their charts. But normally, this is kind of the kind of information that you get when you get a personal reading with me. So Cassie just got everyone as my friend, and because it's useful for the community. But normally people ask me personal questions about their life, and I look at this table and I can see, well, in this period of your life, you're going to be focused on this and that because this planet is making you be interested in those things. And that's why, I also think it's so visible that Cassie runs all these groups and communities because she's such a heavy 11th house focus, and the 11th house is very communal. So having your moon there and with Jupiter and the North Node, the desire is going to be very strong and a very high intensity of doing many things, which is why I'm like, how do you multitask like this? Like it's amazing because I don't have like any 11th house planets. So, I really admire the amount of things she does. And like, we have like this shared spreadsheet where we like schedule the live streams, and I can see like other things that she does on the list. I'm like, whoa, like just looking at that. So like I really, give Cassie all the, respect she deserves, and give her a tip or something because she works hard, like really hard. And as someone who doesn't have those planets, that I wouldn't have the energy to do that. But at the same time, with the 12th house, there's also showing that the 12th house, being natural progression of the 11th house, is also a communal house, but it's more inclusive. And I think that's why there's an interest in subjects such as spirituality or microdosing, because this is going to be a group of people who are interested in very specific things. There's a narrowing down of expertise that 12th house gives to you. Well, if someone has only the 11th house, you can often find people who are like celebrities because they appear to the mass public. And when you mix the 11th house with the 12th house, you're going to get someone who has a very large group that is concerned with specific things that they're interested in, basically. And myself, I have Jupiter in the 12th house without the 11th house, and you can tell how, my subject, my gifts are uniquely tailored to the narrow field of expertise that I'm into. And frankly, I don't even care about, the rest of the world. Like if someone's not into it, then I can't help them, Like those who are interested in what I'm going to do, they're going to come to me. So this kind of like you can see how it completely reflects in Kesri's interest. That in a way, sometimes looking at her, I feel like she's a person that exists more for the community than for herself, and I think that's kind of a very small amount of planets that are like in the personal quadrant, which is from kind of more 1 to 4 or even to 5. Like the only thing she has there is Mars. So I would guess that maybe having a physical activity, like doing sports by herself, it would be something that she does for herself to kind of relax in a way. But all these plans are communal. It's all for the community. It's such a strong focus, really. Like again, maybe like I said, besides the doing things like again doing sports for yourself or like going out by yourself to eat so that you can feel that break, there's going to be a very strong focus on abstract ideas more than your own personal life. Like to give you an example, some people that I know, they have charts that are so focused in the first house or the second, third, fourth, like it's all there, and their lives for them are about themselves. And it's not a bad thing, their soul picked that. And even if they help others, they do it by themselves. You have to have these more abstract houses like 9th house or from 9 to 12, so that you can do the synthesis of public information, public connections. And again, there's nothing wrong with anything. It's about the soul picked. And here the focus on the North Node is very strong with the conjunction with Moon and Jupiter. And yeah, I sent you the email with the visual charts and everything else. So you should have like several emails by.
I do. Putting because the one, and I'm guessing that the 3 charts in the last email looks like mine because I see Saturn's in Pisces, and then the second one might be
Chaley and then me. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I can put mine up.
Yeah, let me know when you're done, and we're gonna go to like the last part of the analysis from your chart, like the last image, and I'm gonna right now explain what that is while you do this, and then we're gonna give the example. So basically, what I have right now showed, because the time constraint, there's only so much that I can show, is the basic breakdown of how these planetary periods work for everyone, how there are those main periods that in general influence everyone's life. But it's kind of like these big periods, they're kind of like calendar years. And then there's a thing that's called a sub-period, which is more like a month. So within the large period, you have smaller periods. Yeah, that's Kesri's chart. There you go. Yeah, there you go. This is an Indian chart, though. So you have to look at those little numbers that are like in the corners of every small box. And as you can see, they go clockwise. So as you can see, and the astrology signs are kind of on the other side of it. So you can see the sign of Leo is in the right corner, for example, and it's in the first house. Then there's the second house, third, fourth, and these are the houses. They go in this order, and those objects in the middle are planets that sit there. So you can really see it quite clearly. And there are these small letters above the planet. They are the names of the lunar mansions, and this is what you use to count also the dispositor together with the sign. I hope that this is clear for everyone. If there are any questions, then let me know. I'll explain it better.
Yeah, and I'm almost done saving the last chart. Okay. So would you like me to put up the last?
Yes. Because I'm gonna talk about the sub-period right now, and the last one was prepared for those.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. So now you can see that you can look more specifically at a given year or like a smaller time frame to see how you're going to realize your main goal in a given sub-period. And right now, where we are early 2024. So you can see that Kesri in the period of Mercury and the sub-period of Mars, because you can see after the slash is the second planet that rules it. So like the second is more like the month vibration is Mars, and that's going to go all the way until July this year. So like for 6 more months, right? And now you have to look at the chart to see how this is going to work. You can see if the planets are friendly to each other and how they are going to operate, right? And Kesri already talked about it on this channel that right now she has a goal of trying to purchase a home where she wants to live in a communal setting right now, right? And that is definitely a very big part of the Mars period, because Mars can rule things like real estate. So the interest in this and browsing can definitely be closed, and it can be done by the time that this period ends, especially since right after this, Cancer is entering the period of the North Node. That was like in July, right? Again, the North Node is in the 11th house of community and focus. So if you're looking for any predictions relative to when you're gonna have the house deal finalized, you can expect that by July you will at least have the building, you know, and you're gonna be focusing more on building the community and fighting people the whole time. And the next period is gonna last like what, 3 years? So yeah, you're gonna be basically gathering more and more people. And by the time you enter a period of Saturn, which is like the last one, which is in 5 years, there's going to be a time when you are actually being more selective as in who you allow into the building, where there is some sort of a change as in who the tenants are, for example, because Saturn rules, being able to clean up your space energetically in whatever place, whatever area there is. So there's going to be a very visible progression here where first you're getting a building right now, then you're getting a community, then, you know, there's some sort of more growth in the community.
And it's interesting. In order to do this, I need to purchase a property that has tenants in, you know, established in there in order to be able for the bank or the mortgage loan place to allow to say, okay, this much money is coming in and that's how you're going to pay the rent. So which is one of the things that's interesting, because I will be, you know, picking it based on, you know, location and the structures. But then I also kind of have to factor in who's in there right now and and fingers crossed that they, you know, maybe it's, you know, sort of already a community, or as those people leave, then I would be able to choose who comes in next. But you don't want to, and you can't force people out without paying them a chunk of money if you make them move for no reason. And I just, having had that done to me, I wouldn't want to do that to somebody else. If there's not a reason, then yeah. So there's that factor. And so, yeah, in some number of years from now, then probably those people will, you know, would change. And
yeah, I can tell you straight away, you can prepare that when this Mercury Saturn period starts in 2029, you're going to be forced to use some authority, because Saturn is about, you know, authority and restrictions. And in the 8th house of the, you know, of the whole building stuff, you may just have to, you know, reevaluate who is there. And, you know, Saturn actually gives positive results to people who are, you know, already past their Saturn return, so past their, you know, 30s. So in a way, you know, while this may feel like a responsibility, you will approach it from a position of a person who is, you know, benevolently but strictly setting the boundaries. And at the end of the day, it's about having stability so that everyone can live together. So possibly the persons that you need to deal with at the time, they will be a hassle to like the whole community, not just because you don't like, I don't know, their eye color, but because they're objectively a problem. So over time, you know, at the beginning, when you're going to something new, you might think, oh, yay, hurrah, it's great because your dreams is coming true. So it's hard to see the flaws straight away. But over time, certain people just reveal themselves to be who they are, especially when you live with them under the same roof. That's a big, you know, problem. Or maybe, you know, one of them can turn out to think, oh, you know what, maybe the last tenant was some sort of a suit, and here's such a nice lady, so I don't have to pay rent regularly anymore. And then it's just depending and say, well, you are wrong. You're paying the rent or you're leaving. Do you see a point? Like, it's just an example, something that I'm throwing out here, but it's the energy that's going to be required of you during that time. And that is for the sake of being able to, you know, just have peace and have a secure foundation. Why? Because right after the Mercury period, where you should already have a stable housing situation established, you are going to have the period that's ruled by the South Node. The K8 is scheduled as the South Node. And that can be a time where you can feel like you really want to narrow down your goals. Why? Because your South Node is in Sagittarius and is in the lunar mansion that's responsible for being a very strong worker. So the South Node, the way it works is that it gives you certain benefits, but releases excess in a way that's very, that it's kind of like a burst. Like, I'm going to go into it to show you an example in a while, because right now, for example, I'm in the Southern period and it made me leave Europe, because that's how this works. So it can create some sort of a sudden purification. So for you, that may be that you look at your goals and you narrow down some of them and you only pick the ones that are the most worthy for you. So let's say that you participate in 20 groups, you're going to pick the 5 ones you like the most because you want to give all your energy to them. Just an example. And you cannot have people who stand in the way of that when you are trying to focus on something you care about. So in a way, that purification is necessary so that you can benefit the most from that time when you're going to be maybe even picking the spiritual pursuits that are the most aligned with your values or stuff like that, you know, or having the luxury to be able to choose what is the closest to your heart, but in a way also permanently leaving that comfort zone of doing things by yourself and being able to really relax into the positive feeling of the community. And you cannot relax positively when you have bad apples in that community that you've soured the mood. So in a way, it's a preparation for you to be able to like slowly ease into that period where by Venus you will be completely, chilling, and smelling roses metaphorically, maybe literally. It's Portland after all, right? So I see it as a very smooth progression, and any ups and downs that you may face on the way there are going to be, a pathway for you to make sure that there is nothing that could interrupt your happiness, basically. Like the universe is kind of benevolent in that ways that even when it gives us challenges, it does it so that we can have a clean slate and a clear path ahead. So, I see that the comfort zone may be mental for you there, having to deal with some people where they have to where you're going to have to put your foot down. You may not like that, but ultimately it's part of life, it's part of life, and something that in one way or form we all have to do in life in different areas. And for you, just happens to be an area of real estate because people don't know this actually, but while the second house is more also about daily purchases, the eighth house has a very strong real estate flavor. And for you, your Mars aspects the Saturn in the eighth, so the real estate purchasing is a very strong focus in the chart as a result of that. So yeah, I think it really shows clearly. I'm trying to look at the dispositors also to tell you maybe which subperiod right now is going to be the most important for you. Yeah, go ahead.
Is this the right chart to be having up, or you're looking at something else?
No. It's okay. You can go back to what was before. I'm using my software anyway to look at it closely, so that's fine. That's that's a level of detail I'm not going to go into right now because it's just too much people. So I'm just showing more real life applications of the basics, but I have some other minor techniques just to show you since I'm already doing it. So here, the Mercury is in the moon. Okay. Well, I have a question actually. I'm wondering because the dispositor of Mercury is the moon. Did you have something that happened to you relative to your goals at the beginning of 2022? Is that maybe when you started Hackety.com or something like that?
So looking at the 27th of February.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
2022. That was right around the time that the organization I used to be a part of was really shifting, where the person in charge, who was very much in charge, was forcing people out. And that was right around the date that they forced somebody out. And I was like one of maybe two people who were not going to vote for that to happen. Your question was what again?
Yeah. Was it something that, that happened to that? But now that you told me that, I know I can see what the point is. Well, what's happening is that, there was the event that pushed you to kind of become more of a leader of your own organization. And the reason I'm asking is because in every planetary period, here we're talking about the major ones, the previous list, the shorter list. There is one sub period among that long time that has some sort of a crucial event that either gives you the benefits or the gains of the time, or shows some sort of a breakthrough that long term is going to influence your life in a direction that where it's supposed to go. And here I think go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely took the stance, which I didn't know that I would literally get thrown out of the whole organization. But that was around the time that I stood in my power, and I'm like, I don't like what's going on here. There were some things going on that were actually, illegal is an interesting way to describe it, that we're not allowed. The group is a 501c3. There was money that was going to be spent in a way that was not okay. And I'm like, look, you don't just get to do this because you get to do this. I am legally on this 501c3. I'm on the hook for like this, I was trying to stop them from doing certain things and they didn't like that. And I was just, and at the same time too, I thought I could stand my ground and make changes that like that thing. And that thing didn't ever happen, but they were pushing for doing things that weren't okay. And then I did stand my ground, and yet there were a lot of things I couldn't stop because if it's a majority vote situation. And so I didn't think they were going to throw me out over it, but they so wanted to have a smooth path. Like if you weren't just going to rubber stamp everything, they had gotten rid of several people and then they got rid of me. And I was like, it was really upsetting to me because I was very invested in the community and the organization. And yet I real quickly saw that because there was so much bullshit going on, it was a big gift to me, because now all of a sudden, I was invested in and giving and doing so much, and yet they took it away. And so all of a sudden I had all that time and energy. It took me a while to figure out how to repurpose it. But yeah, that's when I made the shift to, let me take that energy and put it into my own thing that I can't vote myself out of, that, is doing a sort of similar but different. And two, that was a specific focus, and my focus with my group is many things, and that's fits me better. So yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I'm talking about, is that it was very important for you to actually, be more of a pioneer and do things yourself, because, looking at your chart here, there is an importance towards self-advocating in your own environments, more than just, being a person that's part of something. Then you are the idea, you're not just a small piece of it, you are the leader, basically. So the leadership role here is very important within the community. And, the problem here may be that with Moon, when you have planets conjunct the North Node, in a way, there can be a certain fear of accessing them. But when you have two benefics like you, doing that, like stepping out of the comfort zone, is going to give you nothing but good stuff. And even though it may feel scary, that works well for you. And that's exactly what happened. Like up to that point, you probably felt like you should be more like a part of something, but more in the background. And then you took charge of things. And honestly, you are doing so well that if I didn't know, I would say that you've been doing it forever. So, so naturally it was just the universe trying to push you towards your own path of progression, And it's very funny because I personally also relate to you. And I also have, several planets that are close located with my North Node, that I had a similar problem where I would try to participate in, several situations and with several people regarding cooperation on projects that were supposed to bring, hope and inspiration to the world. And whenever I tried to do something like this with somebody, there were like all these weird things that would happen where these people would somehow flake out, or they were like the craziest things happening to me. And in a way, it doesn't mean that I can't cooperate with anyone, but it means that I have to also focus on expressing myself instead of just more thinking that I can only do certain things while I'm with the other person. So right now I'm doing a thing with you, but also I have my own writing that I do whether or not you're here, and I also publish my own stuff. So it's like you stick with things with people when they are valuable to you, but you also don't put yourself down in that way. That's kind of how the whole North Node stellium thing works. And as a result, you're gonna just have like the weirdest things happen to you, like here with, even though they're unfair, at the end of the day they're just showing you where your place is not. Like here you are saying that the board was starting to vote you off, and in my past I had things happen to me when I was working with somebody who was a project relating to music instead of spirituality. Like I was doing the more aspirational part of it, where I was in the creative process, and I was kind of inserting my ideas about spirituality into music, and I was very invested in it. And it turned out that the person I was working with, that was kind of like the main person behind it, had a mental illness, and we were friends prior to that, and no one knew, including he didn't know either. He didn't know either at the time, and it like really deteriorated, and to the point that it was impossible to work with him, because he turned from a person who was maybe slightly wild but normal, and fell into someone that was just losing completely. And up until this point, he's not doing anything because I think he's like on medication or something. It was that kind of level of illness. And this is the kind of stuff that happened to me whenever I would try to put myself in the shadow too much instead of speaking out about what I know. And it was a very similar scheme, like you said, when there are certain external things that are unexpected that kind of push you instead towards your own thing and your own self-expression. That's kind of how the North Node stelliums work. Because for you have it with Jupiter and Moon, and for me, I have like very close to like Mercury and Venus. So again, it's two benefics that operate next to it. So you get more growth from going towards being out of your comfort zone, and that's your soul's purpose for this lifetime. And you can see the progression right now again of the intermediate periods very nicely of how that's going to go for you. Plus, I give you a warning that you're gonna have to be ready to play the strict landlord at some point, and I even showed you when. So get ready for that, and I'm sure you're gonna do it in a just and fair way. Do you have any questions about your chart, or do you want to ask anything else, or about this period?
No, I think if we were watching the clock, we'd be like, I'm happy to go. as long as you want to go. But and we haven't heard from Shaylee. There are people in the chat, but I'm guessing it's not Shaylee unless somehow she's like driving or otherwise unable. So I'll leave it to you to decide if we have enough time to do, look at yours, since you've talked about that a little bit, and potentially even yours as it relates to me and our little project here together. And or look at Shaylee's, like you said, I'm sure she would be happy to watch it on the replay, but it'll be different because she's not able to say, yes, that's true, or give us examples. But
yeah, I'm thinking that, worst case, it is necessary, if she arrives, maybe next time we can make sure that she's there and I can do another episode where I can look at other things and look at her specifically. Her chart is not going to escape. I have it there. And like what you said, like synastry between people is another subject altogether than the Dasha periods. So I would definitely start with, with showing how the planetary periods work, maybe using, like you said, my chart as an example this time. And then we can, do some brief synastry at the end if you want to. Because again, if we start talking about synastry, I have to start a whole other subject on this, of saying,
it can help us decide. Maybe we could do synastry next week or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Find a way.
Yeah. Sure. Well, I still have time because Scott, my husband and I are going to IKEA, but he's not back home yet, so I'm waiting for him anyway. So I can use my chart right now to show some more examples until he comes back, because I'm older just to go with him later. And in the meantime, I have time. And you said you're going somewhere too, so I'm guessing you have a time limit for that too.
I am, but when I tried to look up, and I guess it's a birthday party and there are two bands playing, but I looked at the ticket and the ticket doesn't have a time. And some usually shows start at 9 maybe or 9:30. But if there's two bands, sometimes it's earlier. But I'll have to call them. And two, I am going, but I don't have to be there the first moment the first note happens. It's a long night, and so I have some other things I'm going to do at home before I go.
Yeah, well, I have more. Like I have more of a time frame because shops close, but it's still in 3 hours, so we have 3 hours to play with. So open my chart now, and I'm gonna give you more examples from how can I look at it with a different person, because your chart is very. This is not me. No, I think this might be Mrs. Chaley.
This is Chaley. There you go. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's cool. That is me. Yeah, these are the basic placements. You can use them for a referral, and show me the list instead, actually, because this is just the basic breakdown of placements.
Which is this.
Yeah, there you go. This is the period. Yeah. Okay. So remember how I said before how it really matters what period are you in your life and when that's going to happen, actually, and how there's going to influence the whole experience that you have. As you can see, I was born in 1992, and I was born halfway through a certain period since I was a child. And it's exactly how that works, actually, is that the themes of responsibility and self-sufficiency were very strongly instilled in my life because I was raised by a single mother. And my parents split up very early, as in I don't even remember them being together because I was still, I was still in diapers. I have no memory. I have maybe some vague, how sometimes children have some memories from when they were very young, and it's almost feels like a dream. That's how it feels to me. I have this one memory of me probably laying in some sort of a crib and seeing their silhouettes through the door that I know it's in my father's apartment because I've been there later as an adult, so I know how it looks like, and it's just so foggy. Kids sometimes have something like that. And I think it's very important, again, to see how the dispositor of the chart is going to decide the effects that you have of the Dasha period. Like I was talking with Kazri, how there was on one hand the security because of the second house influence mixed with the 12th house and the feeling of disconnect between her purpose and now her reliving that right now and writing her own story. Well, for me, the big focus there was about my my ancestry, because my Saturn is in the 4th house of of things like family roots, and it's less about the physical provision, but it's more about the literally DNA, the bloodline. And very fast after I was born, in Canada, I was moved by my family back to Europe, where my origins are from. And being born in a certain period, even if it came slightly later in life, I think I would still be forced to live there at the time, because this is it was closing up my my family karma relative to where I had to kind of meet the roots that were there to learn certain things and wrap up certain things with my family. And ironically enough, during the time, I think that I felt very on one hand, I was protected by my family because the 4th house, again, just like the 2nd house with you, Cancer, is good for childhood because they are very nurturing houses. So my mother was very loving, being a single. Is that mine? Yeah, that's mine. my mother was very loving being a single parent. She put a lot of attention and caring to me, and we had kind of a family community. But on the other hand, I was always the odd kid out, probably because my mentality is not very Polish. I fit more intellectually in the whole Portland spiritual circle. I'm, more interested in those kind of subjects, and Poland is a Catholic country, and my family is not only more traditional when it comes to religious values, because they're not that extreme. Actually, they're kind of, their religion part of there is it's kind of mild. They just go to church once a week and celebrate certain holidays, and that's all there is to it. And but when it comes to like the work culture and the traditional hustle culture, they have like a very strong poverty mindset, which I always hated. And I would often talk to my mother and I would argue with her, and I would be like, what are you doing? Like, you're drawing a paycheck that's like barely having as the bills paid, and you have all these dreams and you don't even try to do anything with them on the side. And the sad thing is that she passed away like that, but it's just something that I've seen my family do, is that it's like they would be happy to get any employment whatsoever, even if it makes them want to kill themselves, and then they would like react in all those other ways emotionally because they felt unfulfilled. It's like I haven't seen a single person that really try to make a living while pursuing their dreams. And it was really annoying for me because it's just not what I believe in. And I think that especially now with the internet age, there are so many ways that people can realize their passions and get paid for it and still have an occupation that doesn't make them want to end their life every day, or have a complete burnout and then take out their frustration on the next generation of kids. It's a loop that doesn't end. And we have all these opportunities so that we can do something more with our lives. Like nowadays, if there's OnlyFans and people make millions on OnlyFans, you can do anything. Let's face it, like in this age, there's hardly a limit in what you're doing. And as long as you're doing it with passion and integrity, I guess I also have more luck in that department because the times have changed and the whole internet thing, it has become more like in the last 10 years, maybe slightly less, when making money online to such an extent has become a big thing. So I have the advantage of our generation. It's true. And in the past, it was more difficult. That is true. But still, I think when there's a will and when there's passion, there's a way. And yeah, in that time, I really suffered, in the early environment because I don't know if you can hear it, because being born in the French part of Canada, my accent is more of a blend of different things, but my mouth never really quite fit well with the Polish language. It's very intense in those hard consonants, and I always lisp my whole life in Polish. Like when it comes to reading or grammar, I'm very proficient, like even Polish literature, because I had a good education. But whenever I speak in Polish, it's really horrible, and I was raised there, but I actually went to like a speech therapist for a very long time, and I feel more comfortable in English or even French. And that contributed to like very severe bullying, that's how Saturn works, and me not really fitting in with the kids in the playground because they would look at me and they were like, who is this weirdo? Who is this person? And then sometimes, people would discuss their family backgrounds, and I would say that I wasn't born in Poland. They'd be like, what is this? Like, you think how small-minded that is? But it's kind of like going in the middle of like somewhere in the flyover states in America, and everyone there is from one small village. And if you're from a different country, you probably are, they're going to have a problem with you, right? As opposed to living in a big town where there are many ethnicities, right? And it was kind of like that over there, and it was very, tough on me in a way emotionally. So to just kind of stick more to my family, I guess, because they cared less, but it was hard when it came to like having peers. And I had I think only like one good friend, and in the period, and I didn't really have many people, probably because Saturn is in Aquarius, so Saturn is disposed by itself in a way, so that Saturnian presence was very strong. And there was this unique mix of one hand not fitting with your roots, but on the other hand being forced to stay there, because what was I going to do? Swim across the Atlantic back to Canada at age 2? Was not going to happen, right? And my mom, now being a single mom, had no means or no willingness to go back abroad, because she was kind of sticking back with her parents, because my grandparents were supporting her, helping her financially to raise child as a single mother. And sometimes when she was too busy, my grandparents were kind of my second parents, so they would kind of also raise me and help her. And when she went the first time, my mother, she went with my father, and he helped financially, and he was the one who really wanted to go abroad, not her. And she didn't really have the the steam to do it herself, especially burdened with a small child. So it was kind of a problem. Now, the next period after that, where my Mercury period started, you can go back to the main list. It was a period where, having already tasted some sort of school environment where I was really a good student, I started to have opportunities to go abroad by myself. And actually, at that point, when it started, like very soon after, I think within the following school year after the Mercury period, I was selected as one of the 4 kids in the entire school, which is a big deal because, one school has like at least 1,000 students. And if you're one of the 4 picked, that's like, shows how high your scores are. I was selected to like participate in exchanges with friends because I already spoke English at the time and I spoke some French. So they were looking for kids that, had both the personality and the language skills to be able to survive the exchange thing abroad. And I really wanted to, to go because I felt more myself there. Actually, not even, I didn't even have to go to the American continent. Even being in France, I felt more accepted in a way, Like I remember when I went on this exchange for the first time and I found that some local boys there thought I was attractive. I was in shock because no one in Poland ever liked me. Is that have such an influence? No one there liked me for who I was. The moment I stepped out of the country, it was all different suddenly, And I really wanted to like go abroad very, very badly, for the sake of feeling like I'm more myself. And I thought I was gonna study well anywhere I am, so I didn't really care. But probably because of this poster of Mercury is the Jupiter in the 12th house, it was kind of like with your childhood, Kazri, when you also had the 12th house disposition, that no matter what I did, it was just not possible. Like, when you are a kid and you get a scholarship to go somewhere, your parents have to co-sponsor the scholarship. So even if the scholarship helps you, the parents still have to pay some for you. And the problem here is that, while Poland is in the European Union, it's part of the, Schengen zone, the open borders in Europe, we still have a different currency. As, for example, France or Germany, they have a stronger currency. So right now, actually, it's funny because the prices in Poland are rising because the economy is rising, so it's less drastic. The differences are less drastic. But back then, 20 years ago, it was drastic. It really was. And there was no way my mother could co-sponsor me going abroad to a more expensive country when she could barely pay for me in Poland. So no matter how much I studied and how much of a good grade situation I had going on, it was completely impossible for me to go anywhere. Like I did what I could within the, within Poland, and I got a degree and everything, and I had some work experience. But it was like kind of like a string of burdens that wouldn't really stop for me, especially since at a certain point it was more about me doing things for others, because it's kind of how Jupiter disposition can work. That if it's in the house like the 8th or 12th, it becomes more self-sacrificial as opposed to pursuing your dreams. And I kind of started to feel at a certain point like I was studying not for myself but for the sake of pleasing my family, who are enjoying having a good studying kid. And that's why I'm saying that looking at this poster is so important, because you can see how Cassie has a Mercury period right now. She's in it, and you can see how different it is for her, that being, disposed for differently, and how different it was for me being disposed by this Jupiter in the 12th house. I'm going to look back at your chart again because I'm curious to see the comparison.
Or I could pull that up. Do you want to see this information? Or
yeah, because they go, see, your Mercury is disposed by the moon in the 11th house. It's okay, I already got it. So you can see how the disposition in the 11th house for Kazri leads more her to her building a community based on her aspirations. Meanwhile, in the 12th house, it was more about catering to, those things like in the reverse, like she had in her childhood. So it's like, it's funny, it's kind of how the order is reversed for us. It's an interesting contrast, like things happened in a different order completely. Very funny to observe that. And as a result, the other thing also that I didn't tell Kazri when it was her chart, when you have 12th house placements, there can be somebody in the environment when you're young where you feel like there's someone either sick or disadvantaged, and you feel like you have to fill in a certain role for them, depending on the situation. So when you were a kid, you could have had that too, in a way. Maybe one of the siblings or someone in the family could have been in a position where you feel like helping them was taken away from your own desires. I don't know, tell me if you relate to that in a way.
Yeah, that resonates for sure.
Yeah, it could be one of your siblings or anyone else, because that's how 12th house planets work. They kind of make you help others, often at having no compensation for yourself, or like feeling like you have to do it selflessly in a way, but it can kind of make you feel like you're falling away from your desires and goals in life. So that's why you had a certain waiting period before you could step into your desires. And for me, that happened during that time, and I think it was kind of really weird how it worked for a small child, because I was 12, but you had that too at that age too, probably, right? And it was the same thing for me, that not only I wasn't able to go, and then there was like a string of basically deaths and losses and illnesses in my family, where my family members at a certain point, kind of like in the middle of this Dasha, they started to just die off. First, my mother died prematurely, then my grandfather, and then like the other person that was helping me take care of everything, my uncle had a stroke, and he's right now still in a facility. He's in a wheelchair. So at this point, it was me, age 20 to 25, handling the burden of 2 people dying and 1 person very sick with my 85-year-old grandma, and it was like very, adult responsibility. Basically, no life. Like my friends were partying and getting drunk, and I was, having 2 jobs, getting a degree, and helping a bunch of old sick people. Basically, that was the whole period. And right now, being in a South Node period, where you have to look at this poster very closely, by the way, and for me, this poster of the South Node is it's very kind of ironic, because while I was in the Mercury period, this poster was Jupiter, but now that I'm in the Southern period, my this poster is Mercury. So it's like kind of moving away, and it's in the 2nd house instead. And I can tell you that the moment that this period ended, there was like some sort of a feeling of rebellion that happened when I was like, you know what, I don't care. I'm pushing 30 and I have nothing for myself. Like, I get a degree because my family expected it of me, and I helped everyone because they were sick and dying, and my youth is passing. Soon I'll be 50 and I will have nothing for myself, and I'm too old for this. And I think one of the things that also helped, as cruel as it may sound, is that by that time, all the people that I had to help were just dead, so I didn't have to help anyone. And the person that was sick that I was helping ended up being too sick for it to be within my means, so they were sent to a private facility where their health was taken care of by professionals. And at this point, like the remaining family members that have stayed in Poland, they're doing their business, and they're like new kids being born, but people that are young, so they don't really need me to take care of anything, because they also have their own lives. And kind of like the period of this really heavy responsibility on me was kind of taken away, and I started to really like contest and look out for my own things that happened. And it took me quite some time, because with my mother's untimely passing, there was quite a bit of a mess relative to like things like paperwork, where the 2nd house, you know how you said you had a good foundation, Kesra, because your father was working a very responsible job and stuff. And for me, because of the North Node contact, that was just not there. Technically, I have like a double citizenship from both Poland and Canada, being born abroad. But I had all these like weird situations when I was like calling the foreign offices in Canada with through having a very bad connection, and with a French accent, where mine is completely different, because I learned French in France, and the Quebecois accent is like I could hardly understand it, the way they speak. It's like it's so different. So kind of ironic, but at least I speak French, so good enough. And it turned out that when my mother was there, when I was still in diapers in Canada, she filled out her name wrong. And so like I had an insanely hard time even getting my basic birth certificate, because they were like, "Who are you, and are you lying to us?" And that's exactly.
So did she like misspell her name, or did she just put a different name?
Yes, she misspelled it, and it was a foreign Polish name. So you can imagine I had to like spell it letter by letter in French Quebecois. And the lady on the phone was like, "Is she kidding?" But apparently they found me or something. And luckily I also had some like old papers. They were like still written by a pen, because they were that old. And I sent it to them by mail, and that was kind of like proof enough for them to look in hospital records. But see, the reason why, for example, you can tell that I moved like 2 years after the period started was because the time spent was like me trying to basically get my shit together, so I could live my own independent life. Like, who doesn't have their birth certificate? Everyone has it. It's like, even if you're not really into the whole paper thing, the whole society thing, it's something that you have to do to survive in life, right? And my family basically, again, I'm gonna say this, sorry, love you, mom, I know you're dead, but what kind of mother doesn't take care of a child's birth certificate? Like, I don't want children, but if I had one, I would make sure that it has their things together, right? And my mom, she was kind of very, very burdened with other things that she kind of had somewhere else.
Yeah, depending on what it is, like you might need it to get a driver's license, but if you never left Poland, maybe you don't need. Like, I mean, that's part of where in this country, with all the suppression of voting, where they say, "Oh no, you have to have an ID," and there's like older people that have always lived in a town in Mississippi and everybody knows them. It's like maybe they don't have an ID because they don't need one, and all of a sudden you're going to tell them they can't vote because they can't prove they're a citizen, even though they're 80 and they've lived in the same house since they were, born or something. It's crazy. But yeah. And it's funny too, the whole idea. I'm a big fan of just a world citizen. Like, I was born on this planet. We divide up all these lines and have all these concepts and rules, and it makes it more complicated than it needs to be. And at the same time, I suppose if there were no borders and no rules, then maybe it would be kind of chaotic with everybody going every which way and popular places getting just overrun with too many people. And yet, we're lucky to be where we are, and other people are stuck in places that are not, that are much more challenging, even though, well, I won't head off on that tangent, because too, whether you have wealth or not, there is that, like, you can be happy. I've never lived in a hut with like almost nothing, But if you have good people with you and you figure out how to feed yourselves, like that's still a life, and it's yeah, you can still be happy in that situation, and you can still also be unhappy no matter what's going on. But anyway,
Yeah, that's true. Like, I completely get you with the whole world citizen thing. Yeah, I completely, support that emotionally. I believe that, and actually in Europe, the nice thing is that if you're part of the countries that are part of the EU, you only have one document per like the whole zone. So I traveled like most of Europe, and I didn't even need to have a passport with me. You can just have an ID from Poland, and with that you can go to France, Germany, Italy, Greece, like many countries. So I really like that. But nevertheless, even if you do have an open world, you need to have some sort of basic paper that states, who you are. Even if you don't take it that seriously, then you have to have like the very minimum of it. Even if it's not a restriction, then at least it shows, your name, your existence. And in a way, I felt like I was kind of, nameless, or like a part of my history was erased. And it was all because of mistakes beyond my control. So in a way, you can see that this poster shows kind of me, taking it back in a way, and the changing. But regarding again what you can expect in the future for yourself too, Kaz, where you can tell how in a way there is a strong spiritual focus in really being able to apply it in your life. And actually, I already started my YouTube channel like slightly before that period, but it was during the time when I also really discovered that I have talents in things like tarot, because this is something like you can learn the theory, but if you don't connect with the cards, you don't have the talent. You can't do it. It's just sorry. I'm gonna put it out there. Everyone can learn some things, but if you don't feel the cards, and it's okay. That everyone has to feel the cards. I don't feel working with a huge drill on the construction site, and that's fine. Everyone is needed somewhere else in the world. And it was the time where my intuitive spiritual gifts also have really awakened, because that's how the South Node works. So maybe you can have some also creative talents for you unlock, Kesri, because your South Node is in the 5th house. So maybe you're gonna take up some painting or whatever during the time when it comes to you, and you're gonna feel, well, finally that now that I have a nice home, I want to do arts and crafts. Maybe you have some hidden creative talents that I don't even know what they are. We'll see what they are. But in a way, yeah, there's you can kind of see how that works with the periods of changing the focus in your life. And further, I could kind of assume about the future, but quite frankly, I don't know what to expect yet, right? Because it's years coming ahead. I'm guessing that because of Venus's placements, I can get more stability. But I think that in a way, I had a similar thing happen. Like you guys really like, in a way, those periods were so congruent and they lasted for so long. Like the Mercury period that was supposed to be by Saturn, and the Saturn before, it was all Saturn, or the 12th house my whole life. It was kind of like with you at the beginning when you had that conjunction with Jupiter and North Node. So like the whole first period was kind of glued together, and only the one that started like 3 years ago was the one that showed any promise of change. So it was kind of similar like with you, only it was a different planet. And here you can kind of see like how a different planet can give a breakthrough depending on how it looks in your chart. For Kazri was Saturn, for me it's the South Node, but you can see how that works. And ironically enough, I think the Saturn's in the 8th house too, and so is my South Node. So when you have like any 8th house planet period, it's gonna cause a transformation that's about you doing what's good for you. Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt this, but I think my husband's back and my dogs have become really loud, and I start to hear them now. And I think they're anxious to see everyone. And frankly, like I could do more, but I kind of don't want to like try to fortune tell my own future, where I'm in the process of like purging things and trying to build something for myself. I'll come back to you, in 30 years and tell you how it went. And it was different with Kazri because she's from a different generation than me, so there was more material for me to give. And that's why I only want to talk about myself briefly, to show that change and that shift and the focus on how that works. And I hope that Chili is going to talk to us next time, and we can do her chart whenever that is convenient for you, because I really would prefer to hear about her life experience while doing that, and I would prefer to hear the feedback. But I think it was a pretty good example of how much these periods are varied, and how they show you exactly the kind of experience that you're going to go through, and exactly how they're going to show you the flavor of that experience, and how that's going to look, and the nuances between it, how you can have one thing but not another, and how you go through different evolution periods. And it's just so I think it's infinitely more important than transits are, honestly. Like just not to be insensitive, but during the period of time where everyone was kind of like really badly panicking, for example, because of the pandemic, I was more concerned with the fact that I was living in a very bad living situation with my family, which was a theme of my period, not the transit. And I would be like, what, I don't care, as long as I'm with people that I love and in a situation that's better for me. Anything can go on outside. I just want to have, my own stability. And of course, everyone should care for the world, but again, you can see how what you're doing for yourself ultimately colors your whole perception, and it's always going to be the focus of your interest the most for everybody. It's just unavoidable, like no matter what happens right now in the outside world, Casri, like let's say that a bomb drops somewhere, you think like, it sucks for humanity, but you know what, I wanted to buy that house, god damn it, now I can't. That's what you would think, because that's what you're concerned with right now, and that's natural, right? We all have our own projects that interest us, and we all have our own goals that kind of take precedence even over world events. So I think that's very very telling. And yeah, if someone else wants their chart analyzed, you can send it, and just please show up when it's time to analyze it, because I can do it. I just need you, and I need the data, and I need your feedback to be able to do that. Do you have any other questions, Casri?
I don't, other than if we know what we're going to do next Saturday. I'll point out that we do we're here at 5:30 Pacific time on Saturdays with Jagoda, and we'll do something in one of the categories of astrology. I really enjoyed human design, so we could bop back to that. And tarot was fabulous as well. That was super insightful. So I don't know if you have an intuition what you want to do, or we can decide between now and then just announce it later.
Well, I want to give Chili space to talk about her chart because she sent it to us, and I'm prepared for it, but she has to be there for that to happen. And I guess we will see if she replies to us, and we could continue more when it comes to the analysis of the period. So to show you how to work in other ways, because the more people you have in your life, the more you can analyze how their lives work, and the more people can see that. But in case Chili's unavailable, and in case there's not an option, you said you like human design. We like all of them. I'm just thinking of a subject that's going to be approachable for the wider public, because what I said right now maybe has a certain degree of complexity, but it has also very real life, tangible applications. And I wanted to kind of question you so that you can show how through my life and your life we can see how these things really work, even for someone who's kind of a layman in spiritual topics. So I have to pick something that's going to help people, also get into that and help understand the cycle. So if you don't mind, I was thinking the next thing I could do was to go deeper into tarot, and specifically, we covered the concept of a birth card, kind of in vague generalities for both numerology and tarot, but there is a certain story, a certain journey behind the order of tarot cards, and their meaning and their equivalent to a person's life, and about the skills they gain. And this, by the way, this in tarot is called the Fool's Journey, because the Fool is the 0, the first card, and it kind of represents how God, universe, embodies itself in every living person to have a certain experience. And I think that an hour is definitely enough to cover that. So it will be a discussion about all the major arcana cards of tarot, and that if someone even reads for themselves, they'll be able to understand that there's a certain stage of journey they are in if they draw a certain card. So I'm thinking maybe a good subject for beginners to be able to understand, the Fool's Journey. I can also maybe some touch on the minor arcana more, but the major arcana are more powerful for a reason, because they are just such evolutionary cards. So if you're okay with that, that's the first idea that I have that's kind of relevant to most people.
Okay, so
are you okay with that?
Yeah, have you cover the Fool's Journey and then do some individual stuff, or just have it be a general?
Well, we could do some more mini readings if people show up. It depends on who has what kind of questions. Then we could
okay.
We could also use that as an example. But at some point also, as we start going more into detail with those consecutive esoteric arts, there's going to be more and more ground to cover, and let's face it, we always run out of time. There's always more to say than you would think. So I'm pretty sure that that we'll figure something out. And even if one day I'm really uninspired, I have like a whole actually notebook of notes where I get an idea, and then I have so many others I can't do it right now, so I write it down and I move on, because I just can't possibly do everything at the same time. So I have like a gold mine of subjects to pull from to talk about, and I just have to pick ones that, like I said, are more people friendly, because some of the ones that I do, they're very more like advanced astrology concepts, and I'm trying to like very detailed. And I was already kind of worrying about making what I said today approachable, because I know that people are not used to the Vedic Indian chart, and they're not used to the concept of confusion about what the nodes are named differently and all that stuff. And if I start to go into more details regarding my intuition on that, I would think I could lose some people here And that's why normally when I do a reading for a client, I don't explain myself. I just see this is what I see, and this is what you're getting basically. But here we're kind of trying to teach people how to look at that maybe by themselves in their own charts if they just use the software they want to look at it. So yeah, I think the Fool's Journey is like an approachable subject that people are going to be able to appreciate and understand.
Cool. Yeah, we'll do that next Saturday at 5:30. And
okay,
yeah, I have put this up. Subscribe to the channel, or double check that you are, and subscribe to Jagoda's channel, because we're also live streaming to that simultaneously. And yeah, we'll see everybody next time.
oh, okay. Nice talking to you.
Unless you had anything else. I didn't mean to.
No. I've done enough. Yeah.
You're done.
For today. Yes.
And say goodbye. Oops. Bye, everybody.